Aloha! I'm Dayva.
And I'm Kuʻuhiapo, and we're your hosts.
Welcome to Wailau.
Mahalo nui loa for joining us at this episode of Tales of Miscommunication with Wailau. Dayva, what is Wailau?
Good question. Well, Wailau is a series of storytelling events aimed to connect our Hilo o Hana to our community at large. It was started during the peak of the pandemic to create a sense of inclusivity during an era where disconnection was ever prevalent, using the art of storytelling. But you're probably wondering, what does Wailau mean?
Well, good question. Wailau is the different waters coming together into one larger pool of water, which represents different people, diverse people in the community coming together to share stories of passion, truth, and today, miscommunication. So the theme for this episode is Tales of Misunderstanding.
That's right. We've all experienced misunderstanding. Perhaps you've been misunderstood, or you've completely misunderstood a situation or a person.
It may have resulted in mayhem, sadness, or hilarity. Tune in as we introduce our special guests today as they recall times of miscommunication in their lives. We would like to introduce our topic expert for today, Julie Mitchell.
Julie Mitchell has been the executive director of ikahi Mediation Center in East Hawaii since 2012. The nonprofit offers mediation, facilitation, and training to strengthen the ability of diverse individuals and groups to resolve interpersonal conflicts and community issues. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Julie graduated magna cum laude with a BA in sociology and a minor in philosophy from the University of California, Irvine. After moving to Hawaii Island in 1998, she worked as an education coordinator of Volcano Arts Center and as the general manager of Friends of Hawaii's Volcanoes National Park. In addition to her administrative duties, Julie is also a mediator, facilitator, and trainer for Kuʻuhiapo. The Mediation Center's mission is to empower people to come together, to talk and to listen, and to explore options and to find their own best solutions. Julie's first experience as a mediator started when she was just a girl. She often mediated arguments between her mother and her little sister, going back and forth between their rooms to broker peace and help them try to understand each other.
What is a misunderstanding? Dictionary definitions include to think you have understood someone or something when you have not. A situation in which a comment, an instruction, etc. is not understood correctly. Dissension, disagreement, a quarrel. These days, there are more avenues for misunderstandings than ever. Live conversations, voicemails, texts, emails, social media posts, spoken words, written words, emojis, and yet we yearn to be seen, heard, and understood for who we truly are. We want our good intentions to be acknowledged, our deepest selves to be known. Gloria Steinem said, "Being misunderstood by people whose opinions you value is absolutely the most painful." Today's theme explores what happens when we are at cross purposes, whether through miscalculation, misimpression, or miscommunication. Sometimes our judgment is off. We think we know something when we don't, that we heard something when we didn't. Sometimes we get the wrong impression. We make assumptions, jump to conclusions, fall back on stereotypes or generalizations. Sometimes communication goes awry. We miss the point, fail to get our point across, change the point. Let's listen.
All right, I think we're ready. Dayva?
I think we are, and I think our first storyteller is coming up to the stage as we speak.
Oh.
Our first storyteller today is Apollo Harris.
Apollo Harris is a graduate of Hilo, where he received his bachelor's degree in English, and he is currently a Hilo employee. He says, "When I was young, I had this VHS of people using large construction machinery. It looked so fun. Well, I'm grown up now, and I can't find that VHS, but I do know that it was full of lies. Construction ain't that fun. Making art, now, that's some fun. I've been writing stories for 10 years because it feels good. I tried to write a musical once. It's a shame I didn't have a VHS about making musicals." His story is called The Cursed Goods of Robert H. Babe. Take it away.
There must be some miscommunication between me and my friend Rob. I keep asking to borrow things from him, and he lends them to me. He's a really great friend that way. But for some reason, before he gives them to me, he thinks that he has to curse them. He thinks there needs to be a little bit of spice of life added to these things. And I say, no, I just want to borrow the stuff. Well, this curse is so pervasive that whenever I borrow something from him, something goes terribly, terribly wrong. I swear it has nothing to do with me. I'm not misusing these things, okay? So this thing is so pervasive that I've gotten tired of borrowing things from my friend Rob. And let me tell you, it took a little bit. Let me tell you about the absolute last time that I borrowed something from him. The absolute, I swear, absolute final time that I would borrow something from my friend Rob. So it's 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, and my girlfriend gives me a call. Now, she's been borrowing Rob's brand new Tacoma for the day, and it's 11 p.m., and she's calling me, and she says, hey, I think I got a flat tire. And I say, what makes you think that? She says, I heard a clunking sound, and I pulled over, and the tire is totally flat. It's on the ground. I say, wow, that sounds like a flat tire to me. Well, she needs me to come down from my house, drive down about 10 minutes. She's parked at the top of the Poinico extension, or the bottom, where those houses are, and where there's lights on the side of the road. A pretty nice place, if there ever was one, to get a flat tire. Nice and paved. You don't have to roll around in the mud or anything. And I need to drive down for 10 minutes and help her out. That's no big deal. People get flat tires all the time. We didn't know it at the time, but she had run over a nail. That can happen to anyone. That's barely even curse territory. Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on. If I know anything about Rob's cursed goods, it's that things can only get worse from here. So I drive on down with my truck, and I pull out my jack, and I lift up the truck, and I take off the lug nuts. And normally this would be like a half-hour job tops. And I try to take off the tire, and this thing just will not budge. I start beating it with blocks of wood. I start hitting it with a hammer. Me and my girlfriend take turns kind of jiggling it. I kick it with my slippered foot, which isn't very hard, but man, I'm trying everything, and this thing will not budge. And I sit there for a whole hour until I'm tuckered out, and I need a break. So I lay down on the pavement on the side of the road, and I watch these cars coming by, and I'm thinking in my head, hey, what if someone pulled up to help us out, huh? An helping hand, yeah? No, nobody does that. Nobody wants to pull up. And I'm thinking, wow, how could this night get any worse? And just when I think that, someone does pull up. It's 4 cops, and 4 cops get out of their cars, and they start flashing us in the eyes. Love that. Love not being able to see. And I'm wondering, are they here to help me? No, they're not. They're here, and the lead cop comes up to me and says, hey, what you guys doing here? We heard there's a burglary going on. I'm like, oh, geez, this just went from a bad situation to a worse one. Man, whew, if I thought that changing a tire at midnight was bad enough, nope. Being surrounded by roided up guys with guns can really, really take that kind of situation over the top for me. Pretty stressful. So I'm thinking to myself, ooh, nope, okay. I just tell the cops, no, man, I'm not trying to rob anybody. I'm just trying to fix this car. And the cops are obviously suspicious. They're looking around, checking right in my eyes to see if there's any stolen goods there. There are not, I can assure you. Looking in the back of my truck, nothing there. They're just looking around, and I gotta get out of there. So I start jiggling at that tire one more time to no avail. And yeah, you might think, oh, this is pretty bad, Apollo. This could be construed maybe a little bit of a curse here. Okay, well, let me tell you about the other times, okay? This, not even par for the course. The first time I borrowed a truck from Rob, it was his old truck. The entire truck fell apart on me as I drove it through the parking lot. The entire front end fell off, and the car died right there. Okay, one time I borrowed a laptop from him to run a show, and a week before the show started, after the entire thing was set up on the computer, the motherboard gave out. The entire thing went up in smoke. Yes. So you might think, this is starting to sound like a little bit of a curse with these cops around. No. It can only get worse. So I try beating on this tire some more. And the cops, they eventually get tired of looking around. I mean, they don't even go check at the houses where there are people obviously home still to see if any robbery is happening. No, nothing like that. They decide that they're going to spend their time huddling up on the side of the road watching the show that is me trying to take off this tire. Lovely, lovely folks, quality stuff. And I mean, it's not happening. I'm beating on this thing. And this is when things come to their absolute worst. I'm beating on it, and my hand's over on the tire, and the cop, he seems to notice something. He reaches down, and with his iron grip, grips onto my arm, and he says, "Where did this blood come from?" And I'm like, what? What blood did I cut my hand open trying to take this tire off? Like, what's going on? And I'm racking my brain, and I look over at the other cops, and these guys are ready to jump me, man. They are ready to pull out their guns. I'm like, oh man, what is going on? What is going on? I'm thinking, oh, in my brain, what is happening? And I realize, never leave your home covered in red paint, okay? Never come out into the world trying to help your girlfriend, trying to save her when you have come off a long day of painting a house, because people will see this red paint in the light, almost imperceptible light of the moon, and they'll think, red rum. They're thinking murder. They're thinking, take this guy off to jail, man. I'm like, I'm just a hardworking guy. Can I catch a break? Oh, so, well, it only lasts for a moment, but I'm like, hey, no, that's no blood. That's just paint, please, please. Woo. And the cop's like, oh, let's go with my hand. Okay. And he says, let me help you with that. And he turns around and he donkey kicks the tire off in one go. Man, the power of roids, I tell you. Oh, thank you. And man, I take the new tire and I slap it on and I get out of there. I am gone. Whew. If you thought I didn't have energy left, well, I did. I'm out of there. And that is the absolute last time that I borrowed something from my friend Rob. Now, to wrap up this story of miscommunication, yeah, you'd say, what if you told Rob about the curse? Because this curse is very real, and I have daydreamed about it. So let me just tell you the scenario that how I imagine that it's going to go when I go to borrow one more thing from him and tell him about the curse. So I walk into his office, and he's sitting there, and he says, "What do you want?" And I say, "Hey man, can I borrow your nice new Tacoma to go up the Mana?" And he says, he's grumbling something. Sure, fine, take it. And he throws me the keys, and I'm like, yeah, thank you, wonderful. And then he's mumbling something under his breath. What is that, Rob? What are you saying? Is that something about Eye of Newt? Come on, dude. That's not even original. Should I tell him about the curse? That his stuff is probably going to break, even though it has nothing to do with me? I could. Yeah, I could do that. But he's probably not going to lend me his stuff anymore. So that's okay. I mean, that's okay. What if instead I told you that we could communicate this in the way that grown men do? Yes. What we're going to do is we're never, ever going to talk about it with each other. Never bring it up, ever. Okay, yeah. I think that's probably what I'm better at, so we're going to go with that.
I myself have also been personally victimized by the cursed goods of Robert H. Bobbe. Joking aside, fabulous story, Apollo. Hilarious.
Talk about getting your wires crossed. You don't have to believe in the supernatural to know that things can get wacky when someone's words and actions don't match. Your friend says one thing and actually means something else. Sure, you can borrow my ... but watch out. Whether it's because of indirect communication styles or even being passive-aggressive, misunderstandings abound when what you say and what you do are out of alignment.
Our second storyteller today is Vijaya Singh.
Vijaya Singh is a graduate of Hilo who is passionate about storytelling. She currently works in digital media strategy within a healthcare pharma agency. Outside of her amazing job, she spends her time writing in hopes of one day publishing her work. Today she shares the story of her personal journey to understanding and No Room to Be Me.
I'm Guyanese. I moved to Long Island, New York when I was 7. Being a part of the Guyanese community, a part of the Singh family, is a very collectivist experience. We rely heavily on each other, we support each other, we live next door to each other. There's very little room for an individualist perspective, and that's the prevailing perspective when you're in New York on Long Island. So being dropped into Long Island, being a part of my overall family, I always felt a kind of push-pull between the collectivist experience and wanting to also be a part of the individualist experience. I would often feel incredibly misunderstood by just about everyone around me. It got to a point where I would wake up every morning and put on a suit of armor to prepare myself for whatever battle was coming that day. If it was a misunderstanding from my peers, I could understand that because they see me as one of the only people who looked like me in that community and had a certain level of expectations for me. But that kind of misunderstanding really didn't put a lot of dents in my armor because I didn't come from people I loved. When the misunderstandings came from my family, my parents, my sisters, those pierced almost right through. With my parents specifically, a lot of it was a clash of almost personalities, directions, perspectives. Inquiries on, I'd like to do this, would often be met with, maybe, we'll see, which would eventually be a no. And if there was a reason attached to the no, it would be a summary of misunderstandings of my initial request. So it got to the point where I knew what was coming and I would replay it over and over in my head when it did happen. And in my head, I would ask, why? Why don't they see that if I ask to go to school far away, abroad, let's say, it doesn't mean that I'm abandoning them, I'm abandoning my family, I'm running away. It's more, I'm running towards something. I'm running towards a version of myself that I've worked towards from day one, a version of myself that I've seen and hoped for with hopes and dreams. And those hopes and dreams, those goals, all of my successes that I would have hoped to have wouldn't have involved abandoning them. It would have involved bringing them with me. There's also a lot of misunderstandings used to happen around relatives. I'm almost notorious for saying blood does not equal family, it equals relatives. And I never mean to say that to be cold-hearted, as it would come off, or they would understand it to be, or not being pro-family, or wanting to cause drama. I would mean it as I have seen these people, felt these people hurt us, hurt me, hurt my sisters, hurt my parents. I'm not easily forgiving. So I would replay these conversations in my head. I'd replay all the answers I wanted to give until it got to a point where the words had to be spoken. But by the time the words were spoken, it was inside of me for so long, bottled up and angry. When they came out, it was from a really dark place. It was loud, it was angry, and no one even my parents, can meet loud and angry at an understanding place. So of course that was met with more misunderstanding. It was met with a lot of, you're being very negative, being very selfish, witchy, but not with the W. So there's only so much of that after I've eventually exploded that I could manage. And I packed my bags and I moved 5,000 miles away to Hilo. There was no room for me to grow into who I wanted to be by constantly having to fight a battle every day in the environment that I was in. So I decided to go somewhere where no one down the block, no one in the other town, no one would look like me, and I could have a moment to myself, to my thoughts. I'd have the space to reflect, not just replay angry thoughts over and over in my head. So with that, I really was able to think about why I felt how I felt, what was driving a lot of it, what exactly those feelings were, and eventually I understood that a lot of the misunderstandings in my life were a two-way street. Eventually, when I thought about it, when I was given the room to think about it, I didn't move to Long Island. I wasn't dropped into an environment completely different from what I had already known. I wasn't asked to thrive in something that kind of wasn't meant for me. We were. My parents, with an already established foundation and life in a country that they understood, uprooted their lives and 3 children in tow, dropped themselves into a place that they also had to figure out. They also had to walk a line of, this is who I am, who I've known myself to always be, and this is the environment I am in now, and how do I adapt? I know they struggled, because part of that struggle manifested itself in how they approached me, how they approached my sisters. And in really reflecting, I could see that it wasn't necessarily that they were misunderstanding me, or that they didn't mean to misunderstand me. It was that we were misunderstanding each other's perspectives. We weren't looking at each other empathetically. We weren't looking at each other as, this is a child that was dropped here and is just trying to learn, or this is an adult that had a whole life ahead of them and now had to do a complete 180. We were looking at it almost selfishly, I guess. And when I think about it, I do feel terrible sometimes that my parents were only given the tools that they were given, and I was given so much more because of them. So in a lot of my reflecting and coming from that and learning to come from that empathetic space, I've learned that I can honor their sacrifices and still honor myself and seek to be understood and seek to understand them all at the same time. It just takes throwing the anger out the window and coming from a more patient and empathetic place. It takes better communication. It takes listening. It takes knowing that with every move I made towards where I wanted to be, it almost felt and looked like moving further and further away from my parents. And from their perspective, I can see how that could be very scary. So, in everything that I do now, I make sure that though I may falter sometimes and the anger will come out, I try not to make that the prevailing feeling. I try to make sure that I'm always keeping in mind where they're coming from, what the tools they have at their disposal are, and all the tools I have at my disposal. And I feel from that perspective, we can learn to be more understood and lead less misunderstood lives. Thank you.
Societal pressure to fit in, to conform to the norms of our families, peer groups, cultures, communities is inescapable. So what happens when our core values are at odds with the in-group's norms? We can feel alienated, set apart, misinterpreted. Disconnecting from socially acceptable behaviors can be both lonely and liberating, as we just heard. It takes courage to speak your inner truth, as well as to honor the inner truths of others.
Our third storyteller today is Kalei Raposa.
Kalei Raposa was appointed interim vice chancellor of administrative affairs at Hilo in August of 2017. Prior to that, he served as director for the Office of Human Resources, where he worked collaboratively with leadership across the Hilo campus in a range of human resource matters. He originally joined Hilo as an associate director of HR in 2013, moving here from the Department of Education. He has a Juris Doctor degree from William S. Richardson School of Law at Manoa and is a graduate of the President's Emerging Leaders Program. Here, he shares his own example of misunderstanding as it pertains to eager young musicians in Hana no?
This is a story about the importance of having a shared understanding, communication, and ensuring all parties are hearing the same thing. So a long time ago, when I was in undergrad, I played music in a band with these two girls. And these two girls were recording an album at the time. And I was pretty much the third wheel, riding their coattails and joining them on their small gigs and small coffee shops. For the bigger gigs, we'd hire additional personnel like a drummer, lead guitarist, keyboarder, and percussionist. So after their album was released, one of their songs was getting a lot of radio play. So much so that they were asked to play at one of the big concerts that summer. Being a fairly new act, they were the first band to play. And we started to rehearse our songs to make sure that we had a tight set and we're ready to play for that concert. So we had our tight set of a few songs, and we knew that we would play the song that was on the radio at the time. So we just have a couple more songs available, down and ready to go. And then the girls would decide, as we got closer to the gig, which song we would actually play. So it must have been a few weeks before the concert, and they were told, and at this time, this is still up for debate. We either going to do 2 songs or play 10 minutes. So at that point in time, we still weren't sure, and we weren't a big band, we weren't a name band, because those bands go on later in the show and they have a lot more time. The afternoon of the concert, I show up at the venue and nerves are running pretty high. It's the first gig for any of us in front of that many people. And there's a lot of hustle and bustle and action backstage. The girls were the talent, and they were glad handling with the MCs and the DJs, talking to other musicians, signing autographs, pretty much everyone telling them how great they were and how much they loved their songs. I was there with a friend of mine, and we were in the beer garden, having a couple beers and trying to relax that way and settle my nerves. That was until the girls gave me the stink eye, which meant don't drink too much before we start playing. So the concert started around 5, which meant we were going to be on shortly after. I remember getting on stage and looking at the most people I've ever looked at who were also looking at me at the same time. And you know, the sun was setting and everything was perfect. My nerves were tight despite my earlier attempt at trying to relax. The stage was pretty large, and this was the farthest we'd ever stood apart, so I thought communication was going to be a problem. We get introduced by the host, and the girls look at each other, and they give us the nod, and quickly erasing fears of any communication issues. So we get counted in and start. And we've done this 100 times before. It's just muscle memory at this point. So you forget the stress and you just play. We end the first song and there's actually some applause, and that helps settle the nerves more. We did our second song, and a few bars in, you could tell that people actually knew the song. And you don't realize when you hear it on the radio, but when you hear a few thousand people singing along with you with big smiles, you start singing and playing harder. We start wrapping the song up, and people are still singing along. We hit the last note, and there's tons of applause, and of course we start hearing Hana ho, Hana ho. So one of the girls turns around and just shouts out the next song that we're going to play, and the drummer starts counting us in immediately, and then we start playing. So right around that time, I look out of the corner of my eye, and I see the host, like in the wings, getting ready to come on with his microphone. And by the look in his face, I could immediately tell we weren't supposed to play a third song, even if we got Hana ho'd. So it was just 2 songs, and we jumped the gun and played that third song. And the look in the host's face was like, Hana, no, like, don't play, but we started, so we had to finish. So we finished the song, we wrapped up, everyone's stoked, and we run off stage and just enjoy the rest of the concert. It wasn't until we got a little bit more experience playing that we understood how regimented these concerts were. They have some harsh deadlines to meet, in particular when they're done. So bands going off schedule is kind of a no-no. It's only those bigger bands who play at the end who get more time, and they're the ones who are expected to Hana ho. We weren't, but no harm, no foul. It just underscores the importance of making sure everyone in the conversation understands and is hearing the same thing and is on the same page.
Hiapo, sometimes an experience is worth a little misunderstanding. Such a fabulous story, Kalei. Thank you.
Communication is complex. It includes a sender and a receiver. What is said, what is heard, what is meant, what is understood. What fascinates me about this story is that although the band was not on the same page with the organizers, the nonverbal communications were crystal clear. From the drinking stink eye, to the set starting nod, to the MC's urgent look. Body language can often express as much or even more than words do.
To end our show today, our final storyteller is Dela Cruz.
Dela Cruz is a senior advisor in the Campus Advising Center. As one who hails from the historic Ka'u district, Kurt takes great pride in his rural, small-town roots. As a lifelong advocate of students and educational success, Kurt takes great pleasure in the advising work that he does. He attributes his love for his work as a way of simply playing it forward in honor of the many folks who cared enough to help him when he was the first in his family to pursue a college education. Prior to attaining his undergraduate and graduate degrees on the continent, Kurt takes great pride in being graduates of both Ka'u High School and the University of Hawaii at Hilo Upward Bound program. He is a father of 2 children, daughter Maikai, who is 14 years old, and son Olu, who is 10. When not at work, he enjoys being a father, and being a father. Take it away.
This story contains a heated confrontation, so some of the language may be a little colorful. If you think that this might be offensive to someone listening with you, This might be a good time to send them to the kitchen for a snack.
Ooh, snack where?
Now here's Kurt with his story, Two Men. Hey, share some.
So my story takes place in the town of Keao outside of Hilo. And for those of you who know Keao, there's a road that goes right through town, comes up by the high school, and eventually ties into Highway 130. So I'm driving on this road, right? I'm going speed limit. I quickly come upon this truck that's driving about 25 miles an hour. So of course I end up right behind him. And when I'm behind him, he begins looking in his rearview mirror. I see his hand comes out of his window. And you know, I think I began to irritate him, like I'm tailgating him or something. So he brake checks me a little bit. And I'm beginning to get a little irritated. Like, why is this dude doing this, right? He keeps looking in his rearview mirror. He keeps his hand out the door. 25 miles an hour soon becomes 24, 23. And I'm thinking to myself, is this guy trying to piss me off? Because if he is, it's kind of working, you know? So we keep going. We pass by the high school and stuff. And like, he's even slowing down even more. Like I offended him. Like he's looking at me in the mirror like he hated me. Like I did something to him. Like he just hated everything that this local guy in this car behind him represented, you know? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, man, this Haole guy is irritating me too. You know, he represented things that I didn't like about people like him, right? So he's slowing down and stuff, and I'm getting even more irritated. And we pass the high school, and eventually we come up to the stoplight at Highway 130. Now, we're both planning to make a right turn, and there's no cars coming the other way, and he appears free to make the turn, and he doesn't. He parks there. And I'm like, is this guy gonna turn or what, right? And I'm like, if he's trying to piss me off, he's succeeded because I'm mad right now. He's looking in his rearview mirror. My gestures are like, what's up? You gonna go? What's up, dude? And his gestures is just looking at me like, whatever, just shut up, right? And so I'm getting mad and stuff. And when the light finally turns green and he turns out on the highway, here's my chance, right? Here's my chance. So I'm passing him right here, right? And I'm passing him on the other side, and I'm putting my window down because I was gonna be ready to tell him exactly what I was feeling. And I put down my window and I looked at him and I said, "What, bruh?" Now, anybody who've ever spoken Pidgin or understand Pidgin in Hawaii know, "What, bruh" is never gonna lead to anything positive. If you was on the schoolyard growing up and somebody said, "What, bruh?" it was usually gonna be responded by saying, "Why, bruh? What are you going to do?" And things will come from that. So here we are, right? I'm passing him and I go, "What, bruh?" And I'm looking at him like, "Bruh, if you wanted to piss me off, you succeeded. What, bruh?" And he looked at me and he told me, "You can't turn right on red." And I was like, what? Can't turn right on red? That's why he didn't turn? I didn't know there was a sign there that said you couldn't turn right on red. I was ready to fight this dude. I was ready to handle it like men, you know, two men. Come on, man, pull over. Let's pull over right up here. Let's settle this like men. And he said, "You can't turn right on red." So I looked at him with my anger and my, you know, like men do. And I told him, "I'm sorry." And he looked at me like, and I looked at him like, "Ah." And I tapped on my brakes and I gently nudged myself behind his truck. And I pulled up behind him. And for the next 5 or 6 miles, we maintained a nice, safe distance. He kept looking in his mirror. He kept his arm out the door. And he must have been as perplexed as I was to be like, what just happened? And as we got to Orchid Land and he got to that far right-hand lane, as we were beginning to turn, right, I gently began to pass him. And I turned over and he was looking at me and I was looking at him and we mean-mugged each other like, and he was like, right? And we was like, and we was like, "I'm sorry." And they're like, "You're forgiven." And I drove off and he made his turn and 2 men lived happily ever after.
Oh my God, the same thing happened to me the other day. I was driving and then I saw Kuʻuhiapo running a red light, so I honked my horn as if to tell him, "Don't run the red light," but he thought I was just saying hi. So many misunderstandings. Anyway, great job, Kurt. Wonderful story.
Assumptions. How quick we can be to misread a situation or assign motives to another person, especially when you perceive that person to be other than you are. It's easy to let emotions ramp up and to self-create drama. It's harder to step back, assess what's going on, and cool off enough to make choices rather than just reacting. And for some misunderstandings to resolve, like in this story, folks need to feel there's a way out so they can save face.
We'd like to thank our topic expert, Julie Mitchell, and storytellers,
Apollo Harris, Vijaya Singh, Kalei Raposa, and Kurt De La Cruz.
Being host of Wailau has been a good experience because I got to connect with different people in the community, hear their stories, and of course got to work with you. I've known you for 4 years.
Wow, 4 years.
And here we are at our final episode together.
They grow up so fast.
I know.
Yeah, being a host of Wailau has been such a great experience because we've been able to bring storytelling to our community, get experience for the camera, and I get to pick on you. Since graduating in spring 2021, I've been fortunate to have such amazing experiences. When I graduated about a month afterwards, I got the opportunity to work as a lead on a feature film that was filmed locally called Mermaid's Lament, alongside our very own Justina Matos, who is behind the camera. And then shortly after that, I was able to intern with our congressman at his district office, Kai Kahele. Both of those experiences with my passions in both politics and acting have been so eye-opening, and it's really made me want to go for trying to pursue a career in acting while I'm young, with goals to eventually pursue politics as well.
So I graduated this semester with my bachelor's in psychology and communication. I'm very excited about that. After graduation, I will be continuing my work with a nonprofit on the Big Island, Vibrant Hawaii, and I'm very excited to be working with them. Hard work, but we make a lot of good difference, or just a difference in the community. And I am thrilled to announce that I have been accepted into Biola University, where I will be pursuing my master's degree in public relations and reputation management. I'm super excited and just super blessed, and I thank God every single day for this opportunity. Okay, it's time to close out this episode. Do you have a great story to tell? Tell the world.
No, Kuʻuhiapo, wait.
Huh?
Our time as hosts is done.
But
I know, but now it's time to welcome 2 new faces to our Hana as the new hosts of Wailau. I know, I'm sad too, but we're both happy that Wailau is in good hands, right?
You're right.
Exactly. So let's introduce them to the world and allow them to close out this episode.
Dane Duprey is a sophomore performing arts major at Hilo with dreams of becoming a professional actor one day. He is passionate about acting, filming, and the whole theater movie industry. He fell in love with acting in his freshman year of high school, and it has stuck with him ever since. Since then, he has been a part of productions at Hilo such as Scary Scenarios, Valentine Vignettes, Lama Kuʻuhiapo, and he played the role of Douglas for Banyan during the summer of 2021. His hopes are to fine-tune his acting skills and one day make it on the big screen to become an inspiration to the world. He says,
I want to leave a trail of footsteps on this world in hopes that one day someone will find it and continue the path. Thank you.
Tori Matsumoto is a Hilo undergraduate English major. She loves cringy poetry, piano improv, cute rings, and most recently, the stars. As she says,
stars are everywhere, and not just the literal flaming orbs in the sky. Stars twinkle in our eyes, course through our veins, and glow in our hearts. It's our hope for the future, passion for our interests, and unconditional love for others that makes being alive so incredibly special. I like to think that storytelling helps us share these qualities with the world, building each other up and spreading this love into our own souls, too.
welcome, Tori.
Thank you.
And now, it's time to say a hui ho. Until we meet again, we'd like to give a special shout out to Hilo's Performing Arts Center, Mo'okini Library, and the English Club for their support in making this show possible.
Do you have a great story to share? Tell the world at Wailau. Visit our website at hilo.hawaii.edu/Wailau for more information about the next Wailau theme and how you can apply to be a storyteller. Selected stories will be aired in the fall of 2022.
Ahui ho!